Thank you all very much. Thanks for having me. I didn't move my family from Bristol. It's an honor to be doing this. It's an honor to be here today. It's an honor to be the Commissioner of Tourism and work for Governor Haslam in this administration. But when you take on these roles, you have to realize we serve at the pleasure of the governor. And the next governor may decide that I'm a capable tourism person, or they may decide that they need another one. So I didn't relocate my family. I still drive back and forth from Bristol to Nashville and put a lot of miles on the car. And, kids are teenagers. You don't want to turn their lives upside down. But I have put them in the car with me and driven them around the state. We went through last October about 40 counties. And I stopped because I wanted to show them the things that I'm privileged to promote. And we have an incredible state. I'll start a little bit with the Soundtrack of America Made in Tennessee. That's what you see on the screen. That is our brand that we promote. It's focused around music, that the soundtrack of America is made in Tennessee. And people may say, well, what does that mean? We have 7 genres of music that call Tennessee home. No other state can claim that. One of the things we try to market and promote is what is unique to us. What do we have that other people don't? And how do we treat people when they're here? We think we treat people better than any place else. It's what makes people want to come back. But blues, bluegrass, country, soul, southern gospel, rock and roll, and rockabilly, all were either born in Tennessee or call Tennessee home. Nobody else has that. But it's not just music. The soundtrack is whatever makes your memories that make you want to take your leisure time vacation in Tennessee. People screaming on a roller coaster at Dollywood, people screaming in a whitewater raft going down the Ocoee, golf club hitting a golf ball, and whatever sounds you may hear after that golf ball leaves the tee. That's all a soundtrack. That's all part of your leisure time. It's all part. So we promote that the Soundtrack of America Made in Tennessee. And I'll give you an example of how far Tennessee music reaches. Right here in Knoxville, the Everly Brothers spent a large part of their formative years in Knoxville. All right. Paul McCartney says he and John Lennon used to sit in their loft in Liverpool and try to harmonize like the Everly Brothers. When 2 young men who spend much of their life in Knoxville influence 2 young men in Liverpool, England, who influence the world, that's huge. Soundtrack of America Made in Tennessee. We start... All right, okay, with a little reminder. Now, mentioned $17.7 billion. We have updated numbers. It's actually $18.4 billion now in economic impact from tourism in Tennessee. That's $1.6 billion in state and local sales tax.
Multiplier effect or just with dollars?
There are multipliers that we don't even use because they're so big. People say, well, how do you come about that? So that's the economic impact. And actually, just like Mike said, there are factors that I think are larger. Now this, we know $1.6 billion because that's what gets collected. But the jobs and other things like that are, we believe, way low. In 2015, we had 105.3 million visitation nights. In 2014, we crossed 100 million for the first time. We were at 101. And we raised that by 4 million for between 14 and 15. That put us in the top 10 in visitation in the nation. But, after we spent about 8 minutes celebrating in the department, I gathered everybody together and said, okay, how do we stay there? Because getting there is hard enough. How do you stay there? So, what does that mean? Tourism development is economic development. So, if you are trying to jump into the labor pool or to get people to jump in the labor pool with you, is it a full pool? Is it a really full pool? Or is it empty? That's what you have to ask yourself. When we're trying to attract people, what does our pool look like? Does your pool even have water? That kid, that is one of the saddest pictures I have ever seen in my life. He's got his little float, he's ready to go, and there's no water in the pool. It is never easy, but it's easier to get people in your pool with the halo effect. Justin, you want to know what the halo effect is, don't you? See, I knew that. I knew you were riveted wanting to know what the halo effect was. So I'll tell you, about 3 years ago, if you all will remember, North Dakota was experiencing a boom from their oil fields. tons and tons of jobs. They couldn't fill them. Good paying jobs. Now, hard working jobs. I grew up in a coal mining area. And in the cost of living in the area I grew up in wasn't very much. You could buy a decent house for a reasonable price. It didn't cost a lot to live there. So if you worked in the coal mines, you made really good money, but it was extremely hard work. And by the time you were my age, you looked 20 years older. Oil field work is hard work, pays really well, but they weren't able to fill the jobs. So they hired a company called Longwoods International to say, why can we not fill these jobs? Why are we having good paying jobs go unfilled? So Longwoods did a study and they said, you need the rest of the halo effect. You need the other things around it. You need quality of life. Is it a good place to live? A good place to start a career? A good place to start a business? A good place to stay and attend college for your kids? A good place to purchase a vacation home? A good place to retire? How many of those, directly or indirectly, are tourism related? The majority of them. It's quality of life. So that's the halo effect. So the days... Oh, and then, yeah, well, I'll stay with this. And what that means is you got to have things to do. You got to have food to eat. So we'll start with breakfast. Get all kinds of these good, look at this. And these are all Knoxville pictures, by the way. So if you all aren't eating at places like this, you're missing out. So, I mean, it just goes on. Of course, you got to have donuts for breakfast. So, and then you go lunch. You go to, and if you had all that big breakfast, you probably want a light lunch, right? A light lunch. And then, see, that one, I had to give that one a slide of his own. I mean, that to me, when I looked at that, I said, that guy deserves a slide of his own. And I'll tell you what else you deserve. You eat that, I want to know about it. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right. I want to know about it. So then you go from lunch and you go to supper. Again, these are all Knoxville pictures. And then you got to have dessert, right? You got to have dessert. You got to have things to do. You got to have things to do. People want to do things. I had to go back in the archives to get that one. Marty Stewart actually has some dark hair in that picture, so I had to go back in that one. So, and I pulled that out. We're actually doing an event in London this week, and he is helping us with that. So I'll tell you what, yeah. I mean, it's remarkable. I think I may have a picture of that somewhere. I'm not. Things to do. Now, I did this because I'll tell you what, anybody you can get from your local community to dress like that, now, she's a piece of work, but now I'm telling you, that's commitment to your community right there. You got to have things to see, beauty. I think this is where I have the botanical garden picture, so. And it can be plants, you got to have things to do. Now, I did this. These pictures, these two pictures, the only non-Knoxville pictures here. But I did this to say that this state has something for everyone. If you want to raft and kayak, you can raft and kayak like Eric Jackson. He's a world champion. He actually makes his own kayaks, Jackson Kayak. He loved the waters of Tennessee so much. And this is where tourism development and economic development go hand in hand. He used to come here to practice, and he's now a world champion. So he loved it so much, he started his kayak company here. He now makes kayaks and sends them all over the world. And in White County, Tennessee, and Sparta, he employs about 250 people, and he's expanding. And it's because he enjoyed the water here. So you can take Eric's style or you can take my style. One or the other. Either way, we have it for everybody. One or the other. So when you're trying to build your labor force and your workforce, it's not only today's labor force you're trying to build, it's tomorrow's. Because you're building for the future. Because here's the deal. The days of my dad getting out of the Air Force and going to Detroit for 2 years to work on the assembly line, to make enough money to move back home and raise his family, those days are over. People don't do that anymore. You might find somebody every now and then say, I'll do that, but that's not what they look for. Remember, a halo effect, they look for all that other stuff. The idea of doing something you don't really want to do for 2 years to make enough money to go do something you want to do, is not as common a practice anymore. So where's all the other stuff? People like to locate where they recreate. Abraham Lincoln knew it 150 some years ago. In the end, it's not the years in your life that count. It's the life in your years. What do you put into it? My boss, the governor, has this thing he calls the shelf life. You go down the aisle in the grocery store, everything on that aisle has a date on it. The date that either it was made or the date that you better eat it by, something has a date on it. To where after that date, it's not as effective. We all have a shelf life. And the governor asks us, what are you going to do with your shelf life? What are you going to do while you have that time? He's in a position right now where I assume in a lot of places, in a lot of states, a governor could say, man, we've worked really hard for about 6+ years. We're just going to kind of shift down and ride this out. It's not what he does, and it's not what he's telling us to do. It's not the way it works. It's not why we're there. It's not why you ask for the trust of the people to put you there. How? How do you do that? Well, we have this map. Very clear. We have this map. In the Department of Tourist Development, we have this machine that takes all of this information, see, and puts it all together. And when it comes out the other side, it puts every generation in a nutshell in about 5 categories. And we have all the information we need, right? Bull. It doesn't work that way, okay? It doesn't work that way. The truth is, we all have choices to make, and usually they're choices between what's good and what's good for us. Now, where's he looking? He's looking the same place I'd be looking. What's good and what's good for us. So there are things John Maxwell says there are 3 things that we look for. What are we trying to do, which is the outcome we want? How are we trying to get there? And what choices do we make to reach that destination? Outcome, motivation, and accountability. It's the influence of the story. We're all storytellers. We all tell stories. We all have stories to tell. Individually as people, our businesses have a story to tell. Our cities have a story to tell. Go back to the soundtrack of America. Knoxville has an incredible music history. The Cradle of Country Music Tour that Kim Bumpus's group has worked really hard on around here. I mean, Hank Williams spent his last night here. WNOX, Kaz Walker, it is incredible. You know, Dolly's first recordings were here. We were talking earlier, Dolly's still going strong. I mean, who in her point of life, I'm very careful about talking about age here, at her point in life, she won a Grammy 3 weeks ago. She's won awards for her movie. She has a 5-movie deal with NBC. She's building stuff at Dollywood. She's holding telethons. She could run for Pope. You know, I mean, she's already taken she's taken Mother Teresa's spot. But her first exposure was here in Knoxville on a radio station. So we all have stories to tell, and we have great stories in Tennessee. And I love this one. Andy Thomas is one of my favorite painters, and this one's called The Storytellers. And it's, you know, Mark Twain, Teddy Roosevelt, and Hemingway, and Will Rogers, Ben Franklin, all these people sitting around a fire. Boy, I'd like to be a fly on the wall if that ever happened. As a leader, stories are important. Every one of your employees and your coworkers have stories. They have a reason that they came in less than happy today. It is an incredible tool in the toolkit. We all have stories to tell. Stories worth telling. What's your story? What ingredients and spices are in your story that make it what it is? Forrest Gump sat on a bench for 2 hours and never won an Oscar for it. You know, just telling stories. You know, he just told stories. You know. And when they're told in the right way, with the right components pieced together, they become interesting to others. Even the most interesting man in the world will think your story is interesting. Now, I know there's a new most interesting man in the world, but this is the one I grew up with. So this is the one I put there. The new guy, you know, I'm jury's still out on him. So you ask who you are. You ask where you are. Don't be this guy. Remember this episode where he running around in a town all by himself, starts talking to himself in the mirror, and realizes he's in the twilight zone? But see, the challenge today that we have in tourism and everybody else, frankly, as business leaders, is how to combine the stories in the old way with the new way. Social media, and it grows. And it grows. And it grows. It's a Rubik's Cube of social media. as well as you can use it to help you, it can get you in trouble quicker. So it's a balance. Logan knows we've worked with people who said, I'm not on social media. I don't have enough grace to be on social media. And then it's good that some people are smart enough to know that. I mean, during college football season, how many times do you look, how many players have to suspend their social media account because of an ill-timed or an ill-advised comment? So just one more thing. Okay, some of y'all are old enough to get that, all right? Just one more thing. And the ones that aren't old enough to get it, see me later, and I'll explain. Just one more thing. It has to be authentic. It has to be authentic. It has to have the authentic seal. Look at these words that go with authenticity. Integrity, trust, culture, responsibility. Aren't those words you want associated with your brand and with your company and with you as an individual? Aren't those words we aspire to? It has to be genuine. Look at all these genuine products. I couldn't even get all the genuine Tennessee products on here. There wasn't enough room. That's just a few. It's funny. Moon pies and Goo Goo clusters and Jack Daniels. You know, Bush Beans. The Pewter is a company in West Tennessee. You can't fake it. You can't promise. You can't stand at the corner of fake and genuine and think you can get by with it. People see right through that. You can't be 200% genuine. We're only 100%. That's all we got. If somebody says, I'm going to give you 150%, probably a little bit of talk there, because 100% is all we've got. But you want 100%. It's got to be real. It's got to be real. And I was speaking to a Kiwanis Club one day, and I went through that authentic, genuine, and real. And a guy in front, I saw him lean over, and he looked at the guy, and he said, those are all the same thing. And I wanted to say, no, they're not. Because you can be an authentic jerk. That's not very genuine. Authentic, genuine, real. Now, I know I said one thing, and that's three, but hang with me. Because here's the bottom line. Okay, here's the bottom line. I know it's early, folks. There's coffee back here. Here's the bottom line. Here's the bottom line. Be you. Okay? I'm sorry, I'm also a farmer, so, you throw that in there. There's animal pictures when I speak, okay? Cows, sheep. Be you. This is in my daughter's bathroom. My daughter's 14, and she is a quirky little girl. Be yourself. No one can tell you you're doing it wrong. And you can't be what somebody else is, and somebody else can't be you. Your story, your brand is who you are. And that's what we try to do in the Department of Tourist Development, is tell who we are, because we know we have a story and we have a brand that nobody else can lay claim to. Now, the governor mentioned yesterday, I heard him speaking at a thing, and we are very blessed. We were talking about this earlier. The beauty of our area, geographically, we're one of only 2 states in this country that are touched by 8 other states. We're very blessed. A lot of people have to pass through here to get somewhere else, and so that gives us the opportunity to capture them. We have 14 million people a year stop at our welcome centers, and about 7 million of those are pass through. That's 7 million potential guests that we try to take advantage of. But nobody else can be who we are. Only Tennesseans and only Knoxvillians and only everyone else, it's who we are. I tell people we have about 810 festivals in Tennessee. And someone asked me, well, how many music festivals do you have? And I said, well, about 810. Because every festival we have has music. So it doesn't matter if it's cornbread or a cornbread or banana pudding or whatever. But the one thing I can't find is anybody having a rhubarb festival. So that's the one I use as an example. I tell people, just because a rhubarb festival in the town or the county next to you drew 20 or 25,000 people doesn't mean you need to start a rhubarb festival, because you may not be rhubarb. Who are you? Who's your brand? And so we put a lot of thought in to expanding, instead of just, because in the end, our goal is to inspire people to travel to Tennessee. And we want to inspire them to enjoy their time. And some people, I say that, and they say, that sounds really nice. What does that mean? So, well, we're Tennesseans. We're kind of front porch kind of people. We invite people over. We're friendly. So being a non-income tax-based state, being a sales tax-based state, money is very important. But it's just not Tennessee to say we want people to spend money. So we say we want to inspire them to enjoy their time. And somebody says, what does that mean? We want them to spend money. But inspiring them to enjoy their time sounds so much more like us, right? Right? That's right. So, but you can't be yourself by yourself. You can't say, what's in it for me? Teamwork is a lot of people doing what I say. It doesn't work that way. It just doesn't work that way. This is more like it. Walt Disney said, whatever we accomplish belongs to our entire group, a tribute to our combined effort. I don't know anything that can be done alone. Well, a couple things, but not much. Not much that's worth much. So look at this. I wonder how long they did this before somebody told them they were rowing in the wrong direction. I wonder if they even figured out. The kids in the middle are having a blast. But the people on the end, who apparently appear to be the adults in the crowd, haven't figured out they're rowing in the opposite direction. You got to be rowing in the same direction. We're all in the same boat. I mean, we're feeling it right now as a state. 70% of our economic impact from tourism comes from 5 markets. And one of those markets is hurting right now over on the other side of the mountain. And we're feeling that statewide.
What are the other 4?
Davidson, Nashville, Shelby, Memphis, Knox, Hamilton, and Sevier. Those are the 5. That's where 70% of our that $18.4 billion comes from. So we're trying to realize and make people realize we're all in this together. You know, it's a cliche, but a rising tide raises all boats. But it's really pretty simple. It's not easy, but it's simple. You can run the fastest portion of your relay. You can set a world record in your portion. And it doesn't mean anything if you don't hand off the baton. Because you got a teammate, you got a coworker, it doesn't mean anything. We tell people all the time in our department. We have some people who I have a team member right now in Germany on a sales mission. He's going over to London for this event I was talking about earlier. We have people who never get out of the office. And what I try to talk to them about is we all still have our roles. Some people are paid to go to Europe and sell Tennessee. Other people don't ever get out of the office. But think of any Heisman Trophy winner that you can think of and try to name one offensive lineman who played in front of him. You can't, I don't think. But that running back or that quarterback had to have that offensive lineman. Had to. You don't win it by yourself. So it's really simple. Simple by itself is a 10-point word in Scrabble. But in the right place on the board, you can get 39 points from a 10-point word. When it all comes together and you can score 30, almost 4 times the point value when it's put in the right place. We're mining for gold. You can do it by yourself. You can do it with partners. You can do it with old equipment or new. You can tell stories, authentic, genuine, and real. Then you hit pay dirt. It all has to come together. Because it's also all perspective. You can have 2 people looking at the same thing. One says it's a 6 and one says it's a 9. In the end, you got to be rowing in the same direction. We all have stories to tell. What's your story? Why? Tourism development is economic development. Because when you're trying to get into the labor pool yourself or get people to jump in with you, do you have a full pool or do you have water? Tell your story. Thank you. This is Knoxville Business Journal. Business. The cover story this week is on tourism. It's big business. It is big business. And we're very proud to be part of it. Our vacation guide, this goes to 550,000 people. Actually goes to more than that. That's how many we print. And we try to promote things on the front. It's a big year for anniversaries in Tennessee. 125th anniversary of the Ryman. My arms aren't long enough. 90th anniversary of the Bristol Sessions, the birthplace of country music. Elvis Presley's Graceland opens. Chattanooga Songbird opens. Actually, we're going down there to cut the ribbon on that today. 50th anniversary of Country Music Hall of Fame. New Tennessean Hotel here in Knoxville. You may look and say, why is Garth Brooks on the cover of your vacation guide? He's from Oklahoma. As of last September, there were 2 artists, 2 groups, 1 group, 1 artist. that had 6 diamond album status. Now, what diamond? Y'all have heard of gold albums, 500,000. Platinum albums, 1 million. Diamond is 10 million in sales. To get a diamond album, you have to sell 10 million of that album. Okay? And it's not all that easy anymore because they don't count downloads and they don't count, there's certain things they don't count. In August, September, there were 2. The Beatles had 6 and Garth Brooks. At the end of September, Garth Brooks became the only artist in the world to have 7 diamond albums. Oklahoma, yes. But now he lives in Tennessee, and all 7 of those diamond albums were recorded in Tennessee. Soundtrack of America, made in Tennessee. So it's also about the 120th anniversary of the Mother Church in the Ryman. But we have a Nashville story, we have a Knoxville story, a Memphis story.
Is that online too? I mean, young kids look at paper, things online. Is that
Yes, you can download that. You can, and that goes back to that chart I showed you with the categories. We advertise in 5 different ways or more because every group gets their information in a different way. The younger group, I don't really like tags or titles, but you kind of have to use them. Millennials, if they can't get it on this or the tablet, they don't even mess with it. And they want experiences. They don't want to just see something. They want to do something. They want to climb to the top of a mountain. But when they get there better be a signal, Alan, to where they can take their picture, Better be a signal, So, I mean, it's very involved. Very, very different. Very different. The 14 million who stop in our welcome centers, very traditional traveler. They still want a brochure. I remember traveling with my dad, and we'd stop in those places, and I swear, he always had a bag. He always walked in the bag because he walked out with like 70 brochures. When my dad passed away, we found brochures everywhere. You could wallpaper the house with the brochures we found. Question, I think we're running out of time. I've run out of time. I've taken too much. Yes, sir.
Okay, I went to UTC in 1992 through 97, and I saw the evolution of downtown.
Yes.
Where in the Walnut Street Bridge, the north side grow. It was absolutely amazing. Came back to Knoxville, waited 20 years for it to happen now. So my question to you is, what is the Appalachian Mountain Bike Club, the Legacy Parks, where do you see that? You talk about originality. We're one of the only cities in the nation that won that Bell Helmet Scholarship. Soto Taco's coming. Fort Dickerson is rehabilitating the south side. It's taking this long. What do you see that happening? Where's that going?
It's the word unique gets overused, but it really is unique to have an urban setting and have that many outdoor activities. About 56 of our counties in Tennessee, the number 1 tourism asset is outdoors, lakes, rivers, state parks, whatever. But to have that combination here is remarkable, and people look for that. You look at a younger group of potential employees, you have 30,000 right over the hill here, of potential. Because if people enjoy spending time here, they will want to stay and work here. And I think it's a tremendous opportunity. And kudos to the people who have the vision to combine that urban setting with that outdoor setting, because it is important. We're seeing it all over. But I have a picture of a town in Middle Tennessee that I like showing. It's from 1975, and there's about 14 buildings, and 13 are dilapidated. 1 is open, and really the town was ready to be razed. It was in awful shape. And a lady was looking for a display case and was walking through and looked in the window of a store and saw it, found out who owned the building, called. So there's a display case in your building. I'd like to buy it. I collect stuff, and he said $7,500 for it and everything in it. And this is 1975, 18% interest rate, and she said, wow, that seems like an awful lot for a display case. And he said, lady, I'm talking about the building. He said, you can have $7,500, you can have the building and everything in it. So she goes to the bank, and the banker says, lady, there's not a building in that town worth $7,500. She had to go to 2 or 3 banks, got the money, bought the building. Over the years, that town was Bell Buckle, Tennessee, and I don't know if you've been there, but it's a town of about 400 people. On a Saturday, you cannot get in that town. It is incredible. So tourism development is economic development, especially in a state that has no income tax. Yes, sir. And
you've got 99 counties or whatever.
95, yes.
95 counties. When you go to an outlying county, do you help them pick like a band leader and get their story told? How do you get them set up?
Yeah. We have seminars. We do free seminars. Dave Jones from our department here is our East Tennessee division manager. He's the boots on the ground in the 34 East Tennessee counties. We travel around the states for seminars. The first thing is trying to identify their story, because we may see what we think their story is, but if they don't agree, that's the first step. You also have in some outer-lying counties the challenge of people who don't get tourism. It's much easier to sit in a parking lot and watch 125 people walk in a factory. You can see the immediate impact of that on your community. Tourism is not as easy to see and visualize. So trying to tell that story before we even get to developing the assets is a challenge, and we spend a lot of time doing that. I enjoy spending my time on the road. Thank you.